Hello, and welcome to Small Business Snippets, the podcast from smallbusiness.co.uk. I'm your host, Anna Jordan. We're looking at small business milestones, those real defining moments for an entrepreneur. Think landing your first client, launch day, and even your first major setback. Today we have Penny Power OBE, an author, public speaker, mentor, and business owner. She'll be talking about how a breakdown made her realise her strengths as an entrepreneur. Hello, Penny.
Hi, lovely to speak to you today, Anna. Very excited.
And you, how are you doing?
I'm well. I'm very well indeed.
Great. Well, I'll just jump straight in here. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the breakdown. This happened in 2017. Tell us more about the moment it became clear that things weren't right.
So, on November the 30th, 2017, I had a shock, which I will explain in a minute. But actually, what I discovered was that it probably had been building up for 2 or 3 years. And the shock got diagnosed as a PTSD moment. I was actually delivering a workshop to about 40 people on how to build your personal brand, how to create a nice engagement level online, how to be trusted, etc., through your content online. And I had delivered this content for absolutely years. I mean, over 10 years, because as some of you may know, I launched Academy in 1998, which was the world's first social network. So helping people to build a brand online has been my life really for 20 years. What was going on around me in the background was I was on a crowdfunding path. So, having built two businesses in the past with investors and experiencing how tough it is when you have personal investors in your business, we decided with the Business Cafe that we wanted to actually go to the crowd and allow this beautiful business community that was going to be an offline cafe and online community would be owned by the very people that would be using it. And so, the way crowd funds work, if anybody's thinking of doing it, you tend to have to get 50% funded. You open it for about 30 days, but it doesn't tip into the investors that the community that you go on to, they don't tip it into their investment community until you're 50% funded. So, on the 28th of November, we were 50% funded, and my business partner and I, Gail, were going to celebrate that. But unfortunately, a troll from my past who had been a really big problem when we owned Academy had come back into our lives and came back onto that platform. And it was the first time I'd seen their name again after 6 years since Academy had closed its doors. And this troll was hell bent on destroying me again. And as a result of him going onto this platform and speaking really badly of me, investors who didn't know of me were starting to withdraw their investments. So on this particular day, on 30th of November, I was dealing with that issue. So I was dealing with a troll, but I was also dealing with a 30-day window of how to raise money to build this business I loved. So when I was standing up in front of these 40 people, the most important thing to me in delivering the content to them was my engagement with them. But unfortunately, when I turned around and looked at the group of people in front of me, their faces started to distort in front of me. It was like being in a horror movie where their faces went all like plasticine and molded into a different face. And the faces that were shining back at me were the faces of 17 different trolls I'd had in my past. It was very scary, but I wanted to continue because I'm resilient and I wanted to continue because these people had paid to be there and some had traveled a very long way. And I continued to do this throughout for another 4.5 hours until I'd completed the workshop. But it was
Wow.
very stressful. It didn't stop, it carried on. So not only was I feeling I was in a horror movie, but also the energy I required to deliver a course to people where I couldn't engage with them the way I wanted to was really hard on me. And I was worried about the impact on them. But at the end of the day, when everybody left and I went to the organizers that had hired me, I said, oh, I'm really sorry. And they said, why? And I said, well, that must have been a very disjointed workshop. And they said, no, look at the forms, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, just like normal, Penny. I
Amazing.
thought, well, that's interesting. Anyway, I took myself off to hospital thinking I'd had a bleed on the brain. And after lots of neurological tests, they said, no, there's something else going on. Suggest you go to see your GP. So the next morning, I went to my GP. Like most people, I'd bounced back, felt great again. It was something from had happened in my past, and I thought, well, I'll do this because my son had actually picked me up off the train and was concerned, and I promised him I would. And in that meeting, she then said, "Look, Penny, look at all the things you've been through. You lost your business and went through a lot of stress. You lost your home. You've also, your brother died of pancreatic cancer in the last 3 years. Your mother's died after 7 years of dementia. Your sister has lost her daughter to cancer, who you're very close to, and your daughter's been abducted and raped, and all of that going on while you're in scarcity and still working extremely hard and putting on a face to the world of strength." So she said, "I
Mhm.
think you've just had a very big early warning." So I committed to go to a psychologist, which I started on the 5th of December 2017. And in that room with the psychologist, I discovered so much about my character and my personality, my strengths, my overdone strengths, the fact that I was very poor at having boundaries around me that protected me, all sorts of traits that were going to ultimately affect my mental health. And so from that, after about my third session with psychologist, I sort of vowed that I would write a book and share what I was learning to help other small businesses learn how important it is to look after your mental health.
Well, that's an awful lot to go through. It's understandable that that has happened the way it did. So when you're delivering the presentation, were the people's faces distorting the whole time? That
Yeah.
whole 4 hour period? How did you get through that?
By mental strength, I think I knew. At one point, I thought, am I part of a Dan Brown television show? I
Yeah.
honestly, I wondered if this was something being done to me. I was mentally strong enough to tell myself over and over again, this isn't really happening.
Would you mind if I asked a little bit about this troll, which brought
Mm,
on the hallucinations?
yeah.
This must have been pretty damning stuff if the investor was going to pull out. Would you mind if I ask a little bit of what kind of threats or trolling they were doing?
So this particular person was a very early employee in the academy who I
Ah, right.
really didn't want to have as an employee because they were a relative,
Mhm,
married to somebody close to me. And I didn't really want to mix business and family or friends really too much. But it happened very carefully at the beginning, and then over and over time became more involved. We ended up giving them some shares to provide some security for the family that he was part of. And there was a sense of entitlement. And after a period of time, we discovered that there was a lot of problems with this individual. And in fact,
mhm,
was divorced, became divorced from the member of family that I was connected to. So we very carefully extracted them from the business. We gave them gift, some money to see them through to getting their next job, and it was all very okay. But unfortunately, we had a group of trolls on Academy that we had banned from Academy because of the way they were treating other members. But because we were really the only social network for business at the time, Facebook hadn't really taken off and LinkedIn was fairly new. They were very angry that we'd banned them. And so they became trolls in every other way they could. And so when this member of the team was ejected from our business in the nicest way that we could, he joined forces with that group. And unfortunately, he had internal information around our shareholding and our finances. Now, I don't think there are any businesses during the dot com era that didn't, I mean, we were never insolvent, but didn't struggle. And to the point where my husband and I didn't take a salary for 3 years because we were making sure that the
wow.
business maintained itself. And we put ourselves really at risk personally. But of course, that's not the
Mhm,
story that this person wanted to tell the other investors. They
yeah.
wanted to share dirt on the fact that the investors didn't get their money back. The people that invested in Academy, which was all fine. We managed those investors very well, and it was very unfortunate. And I think they knew how much we had sacrificed personally to try and keep Academy going against the giants that came into the market. So we had our ethics and our values and always felt very relaxed about how we handled the loss of our business. But he chose to exploit what he knew. And if there's people that don't know you and then they're considering investing in a new business, unfortunately, they take the word of people, and they decided that I was a risk, which I'm not, but they decided I was. And I think it is a lesson to us all that maybe when we do write a review or when we do decide we want to destroy someone, we need to think very deeply about what the knock-on effect of that is, not only on mental health of people, but actually the supply chain that that person was going to feed as well. This is the resilience of a lot of people. A lot of people have asked me to speak on over the years, how do you become resilient, etc.,
Mhm.
etc. And I really believed resilience was your ability to take the punches. I really believed that that's what resilience, be able to bounce back from adversity. I now strongly believe that resilience is about knowing how to dodge the punches. So if you think about the most powerful person in a boxing ring, he's the one that doesn't get punched in the face over and over again.
Very true.
Um, and so I think that self-awareness and understanding your own vulnerabilities and respecting your character and your personality is actually a much safer way to be resilient. In a way that's very symbolic that day. And when I spent some time with psychologists talking it through with her, she said these moments are very symbolic of the way that you have allowed yourself to be treated and not allowed any self-care, because a
Yeah.
sane person would have stood up and said, look, something's happening. I'm extremely sorry. Somehow we will redo this, but I need to take myself off to hospital. And I think that this is something that I see commonly in the entrepreneurs and small businesses that I support. They think that they can be mistreated, that they have no rights.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, those relationships are so important that sometimes they'll put themselves last, won't they? So
Yeah,
that's
exactly. But actually, sometimes we don't realize we are being bullied and dominated in a way that's quite dangerous and actually isn't good for the sustainability of a business. It's not helping anyone that if we are rude, controlling, dogmatic, withholding money from people, all these things are not good for the economy. Every single person has a right to the way that they're treated. That in itself can actually make people take a breath when I say it to them.
yeah,
And
they
then
get the permission to.
yeah. But if you're in a conversation where someone's becoming aggressive with you, that's very different to being assertive. As soon as somebody becomes passive or somebody becomes aggressive, then the relationship is going to be challenged. And at that point, both parties need to step back, take a breath, and reconsider the way they're communicating with each other. People's expectations are very high, and everybody's stress levels are easily tipped. So I run a mastermind group, and one of the things I ask them to do each month is just notice the moments in your week or your month where you feel fantastic, who you were with, what the energy of the person is, but also notice the moments when you feel marginalized, intimidated, overwhelmed, lacking. The online world does like to make you feel you lack. It's a great marketing method by some people. This is all about starting to take control of your own emotions and find your path through
Yeah.
life that's right for you.
This feeds nicely into the mental fitness. Tell me more about that. How can you practice mental fitness on a day-to-day basis?
I was told by someone that the three aspects of happiness are 50% is how happy you are as a person naturally, your constitution. 10% is the achievement of the things you want. And 40% is how much control you have over the life and decisions you make. None of us like feeling out of control and feeling that other people are controlling us. And then it's about just starting to maybe learn new skills and new habits in your life. So, I
Right.
had to learn how to create boundaries around me. Well, there's a book called Cantifer called The Curse of the Strong. And it is a form of depression that people can have, particularly ambitious, strong people. It's the one I was diagnosed with. It's very hidden, but it's where you just don't consider your own needs. And I think it's very good if you start to become more aware of the things that you're strong at, but also what are your overdone strengths. So I'm very independent as a person, but overdone, I don't ask for help. I don't allow myself to be
Yeah.
vulnerable. See, if there's a line of normal and you feel subnormal, you're below that normal. Getting to exceptional is really hard. What I want to do is make everybody realize that they are pretty normal. Once
Yeah.
you
And it's
realize
learning
that,
to be okay with that
yeah,
as well. I think there's this pressure to be
yeah.
exceptional all the
Yeah,
time.
and not everybody. I had a guy come to me for some coaching. He was 31. He said he needed to come to me because he'd lost his mojo. He was feeling a bit depressed, a bit low. He was married, two children. He was running a £70,000 a month business. He could see his cash flow going out 9 months. So he had 9 months worth of client orders. Fantastic. Could pay off his mortgage in 10 years. And I then just said, well, what do you think it is? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, what's your benchmark of success? And he sat really quietly opposite me, and then he started to laugh hysterically at himself. And he said, "Nobody's ever asked me that, but it's Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk."
Wow.
And we've all become subconsciously very ambitious, and we don't even realize how we're defining it. And he walked away 10 foot tall and
Yeah.
said, "My life's amazing." And he just reset the benchmark. Now, I'm not saying get rid of massive ambition, but use it in a positive way. But you have to notice everything that you do towards your business. Your business just isn't just about winning a client, it's about the delivery, it's about looking after yourself. It's a whole holistic approach to business that people need to notice and reward themselves on.
And finally, I just want to touch a little bit on the closing of eAcademy. So, how should entrepreneurs process the emotions of a business not working out?
I would say it's not failure. For a long way, I said I failed, and it's the wrong words, because no business is going to be a failure. The learning in it and what it will do for your personal experience is phenomenal. But what is important with anything in life that hurts you is to get closure. What we do with emotions of loss, grief, frustration, whatever it is we don't often assimilate it properly. And so it keeps looping round and round and round. And I think it is important for us to acknowledge and respect loss. I wish now that I had done a little wake for the business, invited a few people along. We talked about how brilliant it had been, and we said goodbye to it. But you can still do symbolism. I have lots of little ways of symbolizing closures and celebrations. I think we should. I think it's important to acknowledge things in life. You've got to put your past behind you, otherwise it will define your future. And so, just acknowledge it and let it go.
Thank you ever so much for that, Penny. You can find out more at pennypower.co.uk. You can also visit smallbusiness.co.uk for articles on health and well-being. Remember to like us on Facebook at Small Business Experts and follow us on Twitter at Small Business UK, all lowercase. Until next time, thank you for listening.